Airing on Asheville FM 103.3 LPFM in Asheville, this is The Final Straw Radio, a weekly anarchist and anti-authoritarian broadcasts and podcast emanating out of occupied Chalagi land in southern Appalachia. We bring you voices and perspectives from projects and struggles all around the world, and you can find our archives, transcripts, ways to follow us and support us at thefinalstrawradio.noblogs.org. This week on the show, you'll hear part of a conversation with Eric King and Josh Davidson. Josh has been on a few times to talk about the collaborative inside-outside projects that he works on, such as Certain Days Calendar and the greeting cards he helped to produce with Indigenous political prisoner Oso Blanco's artwork to benefit Zapatista schools in Chiapas, and the Rattling the Cage book that he co-edited with Eric King. Eric was just released in December of 2023 into a halfway house in Colorado after nearly 10 years in federal prisons across the country. Eric is an anarchist who is incarcerated for an attempt to molotov the office of a Democratic Party official in Kansas City in solidarity with the then ongoing Ferguson Uprising following the murder of Michael Brown by the police there. An antifascist and antiracist, Eric was moved around a lot during the last 10 years that he was inside and pitted against Nazi prisoners in fight scenarios in a few instances, and near the end of his bid, he was accused of assaulting an officer and successfully defended himself from a possible 20-year addition of his time inside, but suffered intense isolation, insecurity, mail, phone, and visitation blocks, moves across the country, and physical restraint, ending up at the federal prison system's most intense prison, supermax ADX in Florence, Colorado. For the hour, the guests speak about prisoner support, putting Rattling the Cages together, the implications and effects of long-term isolation, and related topics. Our past chats with Josh are linked in the show notes, as are past interviews with Eric. You can find more of Eric's thoughts and updates at supportericking.org and similarly named social media accounts. But first, a quick announcement. Prisoners at Red Onion State Prison in Virginia have been on hunger strike since December 26th against the illegal and cruel use of solitary confinement at the facility in spite of procedures put into place last summer by the Virginia government. Here are some words from the support site for the Minister of Defense of the Revolutionary Intercommunal Black Panther Party, Kevin Rashid Johnson. Quote, on Tuesday, December 26th, 2023, several prisoners confined at Virginia's Red Onion State Prison began a hunger strike to protest the continued use of long-term solitary confinement within the institution. Despite critical concern, outcry from the public and prisoner populations in the state, incarcerated people are still subjected to this brutal practice, which has been renamed, quote, restorative housing, unquote, since July 1st, 2023, when measures were passed to limit its use in the state. Leading these prisoners in this effort is longtime prison activist, revolutionary writer, and artist Kevin Rashid Johnson. Rashid has stated that no one will take any food at all until demands are met. Some of the strike participants have underlying health concerns that make the undertaking of such a demonstration particularly risky. Rashid himself is recovering from multiple rounds of radiation to treat prostate cancer, as well as suffering from untreated heart disease, congestive heart failure. This is why this public support is especially needed. We're asking that calls, emails, and letters are sent to the Virginia Department of Corrections officials, as well as Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin's office, voicing support for the strikers and condemnation for the inhumane use of long-term solitary confinement / restorative housing, unquote. The participating hunger strikers at the time of that publication were Kevin Rashid Johnson, his number is 1007485, Jason Barrett, 1092874, Rodney Lester, 1429887, Charles Casino, 2213403, Eric Thompson, 1208012, and Joe Thomas, 1193196. And the support site suggests contacting Central Administration for the Virginia Department of Corrections, the director of the DOC, Chadwick Dotson, as well as other people that will be listed in the show notes. And also, you can find more on the situation by visiting Rashid's website, rashidmod.com, Minister of Defense. So rashidmod.com, where you can find the officials to contact and the methods to get in touch with them, as well as updates on the case.
So someone explained it to me. I forget who it was. It was one of our elders. But they're like, if you do 20 years or more, you come out to a brand new world. Everything's new. You don't recognize anything. So then you have to build as if like you build from that basis. if you do like less than that, like let's say like my moderate amount of time, like 10 years sounds like a lot, but it's a moderate compared to other people. But when you come out to a different world, like your world, but like kind of on acid. Like everything's just changed a little. And so it's just outrageously confusing. And maybe it shouldn't be. I don't know. But like I come out and I'm talking to you on a goddamn tablet. I've never had a tablet. I've never had a smartphone. So, and like you're telling me like, talk to your microphone. Like, what are you talking about? So like the world, like everything's the same. Like there's still cars, but now my car has 2 cameras in it. Like what?
Yeah.
There's still pants, but they fit very snugly.
But they're tight pants?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just like shit like that's really interesting to me. I know that's not part of our little thing, but
No,
I just think it's neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's get down to business.
Okay, so we're joined by Josh, who we've spoken to before on the show about his participation in the Certain Days Calendar Collective, his involvement and support for Eric King, as well as other prisoners, as well as the co-editing of the book Rattling the Cages. And we're also joined by Eric King himself, now in a halfway house in Colorado. At the end of his journey through the BOP after nearly 10 years, Eric has been on the show twice before, once during the International Week of Solidarity with Anarchist Prisoners back in 2019, and then again in 2022. From the infamous Grady County Detention Center while being punitively transferred after he won a lawsuit against the Bureau of Prisons. Welcome to both of you.
Let me correct you. I was being transferred after winning a criminal case against the Bureau of Prisons when I was accused of assaulting a lieutenant. That's when I was transferred through Grady. Glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us first.
Of course. Eric, I wonder if you could catch us up a bit about like the end of your bid and a bit about what the halfway house experience is and something about your new job at Bread and Roses Legal.
Yeah, I would be happy to do that. And thank you for having us. So I finished out the last year and 4 months at ADX, which is the federal supermax. It's where they put the worst of the worst, the big name people. And it's really not filled with those people. It's filled with people that are just suffering in silent misery in a prison that keeps you locked down literally 24 hours a day. So I did my last little time from there and then was released on December 12th. And that's when I got sent to the halfway house. So I'd like to tell you about my job, if that's okay. So when I got sent to ADX, what happened was I had a lawyer who had fought on my criminal case. And her name is Sandra Freeman. And Sandy wanted to keep helping me fight the Bureau from within ADX. And so she built like a team of people that she felt would like represent both my values and I complemented their values and we could work together to fight the Bureau. And she introduced me to the folks at Bread and Roses, Erica and Z. Throughout the weeks and months at ADX, I became very close with Z and Erica. Like we share values, we share tactics. We just get along very great. And so when it started getting time for me to be released and figuring out a plan for my life, those 2 badasses basically offered me a job at their law firm. They're like, we think you would be an asset as a person. Like, we think this would be a good fit if you feel it's a good fit. Like, they gave me an option. Like, I would say no. And so when I got released, they went straight to the halfway house to tell them, like, we approve his job. We want him working here. We'll do whatever it takes to accommodate him. And they have. And so I have a job at this law firm. Now, this is Bread and Roses Legal Center. And they do both criminal work, helping people in trials, which is something I feel very strongly about. And like civil rights stuff, like getting the emergency money for the Club Q families, like supporting those people who've been through anti-trans massacres and like mass shootings in Colorado, helping trans folks with name transitions, and a whole plethora of things. Like the other day, they did a toy drive to get toys for migrant children from Venezuela and just impoverished children in Colorado Springs. And so I got to help with that. And so I went from being in the worst mental prison you could be in. It's not the worst physical prison, but the worst mental prison you could be in, to now just being surrounded by love and being able to help. Like I'm helping people now first. And that's not a small thing to me because I was helped so much. Like I'd have another 20 years to do if people hadn't stood up for me. I'd have no support if people like Josh didn't back me, if people like you didn't have me on their radio programs. So now that I have a chance to pay that forward, it just feels like the biggest kind of blessing in the world, if that makes sense. That like so many people paid it forward to me, and now I get to pay it forward. I get to help people with whatever I have, whether it's a voice, whether it's researching their case, whether it's doing whatever I can do to help people. I have that opportunity now. And that's massive for me. Like, it feels like my life's come full circle.
Yeah, that's kind of like a double whammy, right? Like, not only do you get to work in a place that respects you and that you respect mutually, but also one of the prime difficulties that people have when they're coming out of doing time is finding employment at all, let alone something that pays a decent rate. And also it seems like having employment from an organization like this, especially one that can have your legal back, offers you the possibility of a little more freedom in the meantime while you finish out your time at the halfway house, right?
So I can tell you right now that, like, I am stunned at how poorly people are prepared to leave the halfway house. Like, let's say you get 4 months. They're not finding jobs for you. Like, they're not helping you find jobs. Like, if you don't find a job, they make your ass become a janitor, or you have to pick up trash around the yard. Like, they don't provide the resources that I thought was going to happen. There's a kid in my room right now. He got 2 weeks at halfway house, like, for whatever, 2 weeks. And he doesn't have an ID. The prison didn't give him an ID. So he can't get a job. He can't even get a job because he doesn't have the ID. So now he has to rely on the halfway house to help him get to the DMV. But if they don't give you a pass at the right time, or if the weather's too bad, now you can't get to the DMV. And if you get to the DMV and they're busy, you only have an hour pass, 2 hour pass. Let's say there's a line. You have to then go back to the halfway house, put in another request. And so this kid's got 3 days left. He doesn't even have shoes. They tell you if you want clothes, go to the homeless shelter. You go to the homeless shelter, they say, oh, do you have a job? No. Well, we're not going to give you shoes until you get a job. And I'm watching this circle happen of, like, this is what pushes people back into the criminal justice system. Like, he is almost uncertainly going to have to commit crimes to survive. I'm watching it happen in real time. And their issue is like, well, you got a place to stay. You got food. What else do you want? So people are just woefully unprepared for the world because we're not given the tools or the accessibility to become prepared. And so for me to be offered a job by Bread and Roses, my God, I can't express in words strong enough how big of an impact that made on my life, bro. I would kill for these people. And they didn't hire me out of, like, some token bullshit. Like, they're giving me work. Like, I get to work. I get to feel valuable. I get to feel as if I'm creating a career, and I'm watching the people I live with have to hold the street signs, the most dangerous job on earth, when it's -5 degrees outside, making $14 an hour. How is that going to help them survive in Denver? It doesn't. And so I'm watching this happen over there, but I'm watching my own life happen over here. And I'm blessed to the gills. Like, I'm so full of blessings, I could explode right now. And then I have my book, and then we have our book. So, like, shit's so good for me, but I see how it's not so good for others. And that's where we still have to fight. Like, this is not over, comes into everything, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And that's no, that's a really good insight, that not only are people not being set up for success, they are actively being set up for failure by these institutions. So it's great that organizations like Bread and Roses are, like, as you said, not doing it as, like, a charity, but actually, like, engaging you and your perspectives and your experiences.
They put me in a position to succeed. I just need to stress that, like, they put me in a position where I could be the best me, and then, like, how can I use that to help them? And that's just this, it's the best position anyone could possibly be in. And I love these people with all my heart and what they do to help people. Like, this isn't a for-profit business. Like, this isn't like a $1 billion legal operation. These are local people helping local people in trouble. And that just fills my heart. It makes me feel like a real human. And I haven't felt that way in a long time, for real.
That kind of leads me into the next question of that sort of resource. Obviously, like, this is based on their experience with you as a person and your skills and your passion and your knowledge. Or otherwise, they wouldn't have picked you to work in their small, like, workspace together. Like, that sort of intimacy, you have to try.
Let's say humble workspace.
I mean, I saw the kitchen.
Professional workspace.
It looked like there were a couple of coffee makers and, like...
Yeah, it's a fancy little place, bro.
It's nice.
It's sweet.
Yeah.
I drink free coffee all day.
I wonder if you have any observations as you are leaving the status of prisoner, if you have some observations you'd like to share about your experience with the prisoner support movement in the USA, what you found worked well, where you find there was room for improvement. I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Thank you for asking that, Bruce. So I'm going to start with where it went well, because I'd say I was supported well. I wasn't one of, like, the Earth Liberation dudes that have 70,000 letters a day and all this weird shit. But I was supported well by people that legitimately cared about me. And I was able to develop real friendships. And where it went well is people like Josh. It was people that came to me as a human, found common interests, and then, like, let's build on that. Let's create something from this friendship. Let's not just make it a, how was your day? It's like, it was a real bond. And there was a few people like that. Like, essentially everyone from my support team went out of their way to treat me like a human and figure out how to bond. And so when it goes really well, we get things like Rattling the Cages. That came from prisoner support. That came from someone in the free world saying, you have this idea. Instead of treating you like a character, I'm going to treat you like a human, and we're going to try to build this idea. We're going to make it real. And so those things happen sometimes, usually with Josh. Usually anyone that talks to Josh has these things happen. But like, it's rare for me. I had probably 15 people where I felt like these are my real friends. And I'm still texting every single goddamn one of them right now. Like, I still talk to those people because there was no weird dynamic. It was, we're two humans. Let's love and help each other. So where it goes bad, in my perspective, I'm only speaking for me, of course, and what I see, is when that dynamic is changed and it's no longer we're two humans. Now it's either I'm put too high or I'm put too low. And I see that happen sometimes where prisoners can be put on this weird, in my mind, pedestal to where we're no longer treated like real humans, where you can call us out, where you can say like, hey man, that's rude. Or, hey, what are you up to? You're doing things that I don't understand. Now it becomes, we're these saints, we're beatified. And that doesn't, like, for me, that didn't feel good. I hated that, because if we're friends, you can tell me I'm being a shithead. You can tell me I'm doing something gross. But so if you're not able to treat me that way, then that means you don't see me that way. You see me as an object. It feels almost like I see prisoners being objectified in a way that takes away their humanity. I guess that's what the definition of goddamn objectification. But so like, I don't like that. I don't like that we can't be honest with prisoners. If we see a prisoner lying or talking or saying gross shit, I think we owe it to them as people to be able to say to them, like, friend, why are you doing this? Why did you say that? That hurt people. Friend, you've hurt somebody here. Can we talk about it? But so often it doesn't happen like that. It's people immediately jump to the defense to say like, no, don't say nothing. They're prisoner. As if we can't handle critique. Like, we can handle these goddamn Nazi guards kicking our heads in, but I can't handle Burst telling me like, Eric, you sound like an asshole. Or Josh saying like, hey, you're out of line. Like, for me, having that from my friends, Burst, it allowed me to get out of prison a better person, because I came out of prison holding myself accountable. I came out of prison ready to be heard, but also ready to listen, because I wasn't conditioned to be a saint. I'm not Saint Eric. There's no saints in this movement. We're all flawed humans. And if we can talk to each other and grow, then we can talk to each other and grow. But if not, then we're just promoting bad behavior, and we're putting people that do prisoner support at harm, because they're coming into these relationships expecting one thing, getting something else. And it's dangerous. It's dangerous for the prisoner, and it's dangerous for the supporter. So those are the things that like are really important to me, is that people treat prisoners like humans. And that includes treating us really, building relationships, being friends, but also loving us enough to be honest with us. That's important to me. Love me enough to tell me if I'm out of line, or if my braids look bad, or if I wrote someone and said something that was like really gross. We need to be able to do that. And so that's where I stand on that.
I understand the not putting people on pedestals, but it also, the communication barrier, the fact that everything going in and coming out is being observed by guards who have their own manipulative like systems of control. There's also the uneven distribution of like support based on like, I could see somebody like deciding to cut off a prisoner because they've said something that's rude and they're afraid of addressing it, or they haven't gotten to addressing it, or a prisoner saying like, hey, this person like said some shit to me that's rude. I don't know. You know how, like, can you talk a little bit about how like that mediating circumstance of the communication in and out outside of the dehumanization, like how you navigate that?
So it is tricky. So like, I can only use my examples, but like my mail has always been outrageously delayed. And I imagine most of us have had something similar. And so there is this thing where like, let's say you write something shitty, they get it 2 months later, they respond 2 months later, you've already moved on. And so it takes patience, it takes kindness, and it takes cleverness for real too, because you do have to navigate, like, you don't want to give the pig something to hurt this person with. You don't want to say anything that's going to create a new case. You don't want to say something that's going to put them in danger. So it does take a level of like creativity, or a level of like honesty in a way that isn't a sword, honesty in a way that is an open arm, if that makes sense. But there is this weird, like, I'm sure people know this, but there's a popularity contest in the political prisoner movement. And I've benefited from this. I'm not going to lie. Like, I've been in the above middle ground my entire bid. Thankfully, like, people lifted me up. People with big names in the movement lifted me up. And then I benefited from this. Like, that's real too. And so I would get more support, and thus I was able to build more relationships. Whereas someone comes in and someone doesn't pick them up, like some ABC doesn't decide to elevate them, they're just on their own. They're on their own. And then they might have to do things or say things to try to get attention so they can get support, so they can get love, and thus put themselves at risk. So there is a weird dynamic of like who gets support, who doesn't get support, how it gets distributed. And we do, like, I feel like we have to do better as a movement to understand that like people are fighting for a better world. However they're doing it, they're doing their best. They're offering whatever they have. And that's enough for me. Like, that's enough to get support from me. Like, you don't have to qualify by being a member of this super fun group or this movement of the month, whatever. You did your best, and we're going to do what we can to help you. And I think we need to try to find a way to make support bigger so that we have bigger infrastructure to help more people. But right now, like, it is what it is. Like, some people are going to get this. Some people are going to get this. Some people are going to get treated like a human. Some are going to be I walked my dog today type letters, and that's all they're ever going to hear. And that creates the dynamics it creates. And I might have rambled my ass off just then.
You should check if your ass is still there. I think it's I think it's there.
Okay, Burst. Did that make sense what I was saying?
Yeah. And
Yeah,
Josh,
It's tricky.
Yeah. No, I have nothing to add. It's great to hear your voice, Eric, and it's great to get your input, directly and instead of just through me or through others. So yeah, take up all the airspace you need.
Burst, you might not know this, but Josh literally supports 39 prisoners. I'm not joking. I'm not being sarcastic.
I don't know if that number is correct.
How many is it? Be honest.
I don't know. I don't know. The whole system changes. The whole idea of support changes when someone crosses onto the outside.
Crosses that line.
Yeah, and then it becomes a whole new world of support. So, yeah.
So when we're talking about people that treat supporters like humans, bro literally writes. I'm not joking. I'd bet my hat on it. At least 20 people. And if he's able, while writing 20 different people, to build real friendships with all of them and maintain a full-time job and maintain a relationship with his partner and have a personal life, if he's able to do that, we can find the space to do that. Like, the space is there. Like, the time is there if people want to invest in it and care enough. If we had 1,000 Joshes, I swear to God, like, this movement would be packed. It would be sweet. But there's probably only 100 Joshes, 100 Burst. And so the more people that legitimately care and understand that their care is not just words, but actions and love, like, the better off we're all going to be as a movement.
Yep. Well, this is the time when I wanted to announce that I've taken a sample of Josh's DNA and we're going to be cloning him. So you're getting what you asked for.
Just sampling Josh's, bro. Just clone him out.
So I spoke not too long ago with Thomas Meyerfalk, who'd spent most of last...
Did you?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
God bless him, that guy.
I know. He was...
I wrote him once in his German prison from ADX.
Yeah. He was super stoked to, like, I mentioned to him that you were getting out, or that you were out, like, the announcement. And he was very happy.
Was he?
He
cared? Mm-hmm. That makes me feel special. He's a great guy.
Mm-hmm. But he spent most of the last 3 decades in German prisons, and he spoke about his experiences on some of the changes in living circumstances and undoing the norms of prison. And that gets back to something that you had said a little bit earlier, like naming just, the longer that someone's in, the more the world around them change, the difference the approach has to be. And then also more recently when you mentioned like support from folks like Josh, or from Bread and Roses, like having people there to sort of like be on the outside and help guide you into the hellscape that is this world right now and deal with the changes. But I wonder, how has the transition for you to having roommates and like a much freer schedule and like access to the out of doors more than like at, obviously than at ADX, like how has that been? And do you have any sort of like clues for folks that are also making that change?
One of the things that's happened to me since I've gotten out, I find myself being over emotional. Maybe not over emotional, just emotional. And so I apologize to you for a train passing 2 miles behind me as if I had hurt you. And I think it's like working through trauma where like I started crying the other day because my bosses were being so nice to me. Like literally crying. I had to walk out of the room. I couldn't stand it because these people were showing me so much love and respect that I had to go. Like I had to get out of the house because my whole bit has sucked. Like you know what's going on. But like the last 5 years, I don't know how they could have been worse without me dying. And so to go from just a constant, literal, every day, something horrible happening to you, every day your fight or flight is up. Every day you're thinking, I might get killed today. Every day you're thinking, I know I'm not going to hear from my family today, to being like given hugs and people buying you food and like people like texting you. Like I call Josh every day just to feel human. Like, cause he's my friend. I feel so safe. And I just need people to feel safe around. And he was there when I was in prison and he's there now. It's a safety. Like I get overwhelmed, bro. That's not even answering your question. I'm just talking about this goddamn train. But that's what ends up happening to me is that after prison, I can't watch certain TV shows without sobbing. I can't, like, my daughters talk to me sometimes. I'm just like, God damn it. I can't handle. It's just too sweet. It's too nice. And so like, that's a big change that happened in my life to where you go from having to be Mr. Hardass to accepting love. And the reason I'd like to stress this, you don't even have to put this in the interview, but I just want to stress it to you. The reason that happened is because I had people around me who treated me like a human. I got out of prison. My wife is treating me like a human. My bosses are treating me like a human. I'm not getting pampered, but they're showing me compassion and empathy and understanding, stuff I have not gotten. Josh, if I need to talk to somebody, Josh, can I call you, please? Yes, call me. If I need to call Brian, if I need to call Sandy. I have people that prepared me for the world by saying, Eric, you are a human. You are going to feel things. We are here for you. We don't expect you to be anything other than what you are. Take your time. Do what you need to do to feel at peace, to feel whole. We are here for you, however you need it. And then they also let me be there for them. I'm not a sympathy project to the people around me, dude. Like when I got out, I got probably 100 texts, but about 20 of them were from people that treat me like a real person. You went through something hard. We love you. Let's work through this as friends. And then they let me be there for them. Cause that makes you feel like a human too, Burst. Like if someone tells you like, damn, today sucks. They're not saying like, oh, don't worry. You got your own stuff going on. Don't worry about it. They let me be a part of their lives. And that's something I didn't have before. You don't get that in prison very often, but I'm very lucky that my supporters and my friends said, no. You're not a project, bro. You're our comrade. You're our friend and we're with you. So that's really important. I guess that's the advice I would give to supporters. Treat someone like a human. If you want them to be ready to get out, have resources for them. Take the time to help them with resources. Also take the time to get to know them and be in their heart. Because they're going to have shit they need to talk about. They're going to have things they need to work through. And sometimes they might just need to hear your voice or just be a friend. That's what I would recommend. That's where I've been overwhelmingly blessed. I can't imagine someone having better than me right now. Literally. Like my wife has done everything. My friends have done everything. How many interviews have you seen Josh do for this goddamn book? It's our book. I think it was on the show doing it. Mm-hmm. So like he understood I can't do it, but I'm not going to abandon our project. Like that was an act of love, him doing that. Mm-hmm. It's an act of love, him sitting there quiet right now, just listening to you ramble. Same for you. Like these things make people feel human and also make you feel like I can do this. And I see people that can't do it. So I was prepared because I prepared myself and I had people that prepared me. You're a human. You're flawed. Do your best. We love you. Hey, will you tell Thomas I said what's up and I just wish him all the best?
Absolutely.
That's a stand-up motherfucker right there.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. Same to Kazi.
Yeah, don't censor that out.
I won't.
I love political prisoners. I love my bros inside. And my everybody, not just bros, my everybody.
Yeah. And happily those folks are out.
Yeah.
Well, let's skip the next one maybe, and I'll get back to it, but about like isolation, and maybe we can talk after we've talked about, unless you want to go to it. But I feel like on the trajectory we're on, just talking about the book and talking about the shared experiences.
We can talk about isolation anytime you want, big dog.
I hear you barking over there. Okay,
that's my goddamn specialty, is sitting in a cell by myself. God.
Well, how did Rattling the particularly since you were working through the bars to do this, how did the project, the oral history project that was Rattling the Cages, come about?
Man, Rattling the Cages is the sweetest ass project I could ever imagine. So Rattling the Cages came because Josh treats me like a human, and I was spitballing ideas to him about shit I want to do. Because for me, part of my big thing was it's not enough just to be free or just to be supported. Like, we need to also give back. So like at one point in time, I spitballed to him like creating a museum, a political prisoner museum project, which is outrageous and it's stupid. But like Josh was like, well, let's talk about it. Let's see what we can do. And so then eventually like we reached it. Like we read together because he treats me like a human. And so just over discussions, reading about prisoners, reading about the trauma that prisoners faced inside. Irish prisoners. We were reading about Irish folks, people from the Troubles. And so it just developed into this, like, we could interview or we could talk to our elders. For me, it started with only the elders. Like, that's what I wanted. Because Tom Manning had just died. And I thought, like, there's so many stories of this guy that we missed. I was living with a different elder previously, and I got to hear his stories. And so then Tom Manning died. And it's just like, this is real history, and we're going to lose it. And we're going to lose it fast. And so I brought this idea to Josh, and my wife got involved too, for real. Like, she was like she was adding like ways. I think she might've been the one to say, make it a book. And then Josh was like, look, I know about 700 people. I'm going to put all of them in it. I was like, what?
Write to each of them daily.
He does. I swear. But he was like, look, here's all the people I'm going to put in. She's like, are you fucking serious, bro? Because once again, he took my idea, made it our idea, because we talked about it together, and then made it so much better. Mine would have been a pamphlet with just the elders, 10 people. And it would have been sweet. But Josh is like, how about we do something better? How about we make this just a full encompassing thing of love, so that way we can represent all stories. And so then I'm having to smuggle letters out to him about like questions and stuff like that. I'm having to pay people in the shoe to send mail to Josh. And then Josh would respond to them or to my wife, depending on which. Like, these dudes have to write out the letter verse. So I'd have to pay him like $5 a letter. Josh, you still owe me. I'll get that later. But so I would write these letters, give it to them. They translate the letters and then mail them out on their time. And from there, just like, it took a long time for real. Cause there was a period where I was getting crushed on a daily physically, and I couldn't write to Josh then. Like, I didn't have the space. But so he was patient, man. He was patient. He let the project evolve naturally. He invested all the time, and he put our heart and soul into it and just made it into something really special. And it came from support. It came from just normal, loving friendship and support.
I'll just add that the reason it grew initially was because most of the people that Eric wanted to interview ended up dying, you know, after years and years of medical neglect. No, I mean, it's serious. You know, you wanted to,
Maroon.
Maroon, Bo Brown, Chip Fitzgerald, Blood McCreary, Kathy Boudin died. Like, so many people died.
Missing Kathy really hurt.
Yeah. Latula Shakur, Eddie Conway, Albert Woodfox. There were so many people that died just in the, 4 years that it took us to make this book. So
4 years of patient back and forth conversations only through letters. This dude is amazing.
Well, only through letters with you, but it was with emails through others.
You want to say hi?
Yeah.
Hey, can I show you guys my boss real quick? Come.
For sure.
This is Josh, and this is Burst from The Final Straw. I was just telling them how you treat me like a human. I'm the most blessed person alive. Did you get a donut?
I did get a donut.
Okay, very good.
I'm very excited about that.
You have donuts at the office, huh? Wow.
Rochelle brought them.
And chips.
They have
And
chips.
chips,
They keep us stacked with free food, free coffee, free tea. Golly. I went 5 years without coffee. All of a sudden I get it for free on the daily. Welcome to my world, fellas. God. You want to come up.
Yeah.
Sign on with bread and goddamn roses. Thank you, Eric. I love you. Thank you.
Well, I was going to say also that, like, for all the people that did pass in that period of time, it's a thick book. Like, you got a lot of people's experiences from all over, like, Anglophone Turtle Island, at least, like, from so-called Canada and USA.
Turtle Island, okay.
Yeah, that's rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
Yeah, holy.
But, like, that's pretty incredible. And folks, like, obviously, like, not only who are still inside, but folks talking about their former experience, like, inside.
That's where Josh nailed it.
Yeah.
And that's where my project would have failed. It wouldn't have been as comprehensive. It wouldn't have been as interesting. And it wouldn't have taught as much if we just done it the way I wanted before Rochelle got involved, before Josh stewed it, mixed it up into something really special. That's what made it something like really powerful in my mind. Josh?
Yeah, no, I'll just add that I think, you know, the project was such a good idea that people wanted to get involved. You know, I didn't reach out necessarily to all the people involved, but they heard through word of mouth about it, and, you know, and they wanted to share their stories. They wanted to be a part of you know, raising political prisoner voices. So I right back at you with the idea for that.
For me, what it started as a love letter to the elders. I thank you for what you did, because I couldn't have survived my prison experience without your wisdom. Josh turned it into not just a love letter, but a comprehensive love letter, like a full dictionary love letter of let's learn every lesson. Let's not leave any lesson unlearned. Like, cause I focused on the 30 years and more people, but It's important to have someone in there that only did 12 months. It's important to have someone in there that are trans. Definitely. It's important to have the elder Black people. It's important to have women, men, gays. Like, it adds so many more lessons for us all to learn about like what oppression looks like and what resistance looks like. Because my perspective isn't the only perspective, and it's dangerous and stupid if I only want to give the story from like my lenses. And Josh opened it up to 1,000 lenses. And that's what adds just the beauty to the book, I feel. Every lesson is taught. R.I.P. Kathy.
So are you all otherwise are you all collaborating on other projects at the moment, or are there any other projects that you all have worked on together that you want to talk about?
I have 33 projects I have going on right now with Josh exclusively. So in my mind, Rattling the Cages isn't a one and done thing. There's more prisoners out there. Like, there's social prisoners. There are prisoners that have security threat groups. There are prisoners that have been held in dungeons for decades. So in my mind, like, there's international prisoners. That's important. And then from my perspective, I want to talk to people that do prison support. I want to know their history first, because like we can learn from that also. People that have been tangibly involved in the movement have so much to teach us. If we open our ears and listen to people that have done this, we can learn so much about what worked, what didn't work, what helped, what didn't help. And then also, I believe we got a cartoon project going on, a child version of Rattling the Cages. Josh, do you want to say?
Yeah, it's an idea that's percolating right now. I've done a few events for the book, one in San Francisco, another in New York, and then one in Baltimore.
He's a very big celebrity.
No, not really. But some people came, which is really encouraging to see. Yeah, and a friend's child came to the event in Baltimore, and she asked afterwards, if there were books to help her understand political prisoners and why people were in prison. And there's one or two that kind of touch on the subject, but there isn't much. And I think it would be helpful if there were. And there's a lot of great organizations doing work out there that could, potentially use it as a fundraiser. So it's something we're looking into.
Could you name a few of those? Maybe the organizations?
The first that initially came to mind was the Rosenberg Fund for Children, which I
would like to dig into.
Yeah. As a recipient of the Rosenberg Fund for Children, Eric, you should go ahead and talk about them. Yeah,
Burst. I don't know if you're familiar with the Rosenberg Foundation for Children, but so they help not just political prisoners' kids, but activist kids, activists that are facing repression. And they came to us about 6 or 7 years ago, and I didn't know anything about them, but they immediately just started helping my children. Like, they got to go to these cool camps, and they got to learn skills like guitar and horse riding. They gave us gas money occasionally for Rochelle and the girls to come visit me. And they do like shit like this all the time. When I was getting out of prison, the Rosenberg Foundation paid for the hotel and the car rental. That's not a small thing. And when I talk to you about like me being like just blessed through the moon, that's the sort of shit I'm talking about. Because people, they're normal people, but they got together and said, how can we help? And they do this for lots of us. And it is the biggest blessing, because I can't help my kids. When I'm in ADX or whatever, I can't take them on a horse riding thing. I can't get them to have neat stuff for the backyard so they can have a fun little winter or summer. But the Rosenberg Foundation can, and they do. It's not just that they can do it, they do it. And that's just so beautiful to me. And so me and Josh had talked about, when we do the kids book, if we can't like use it to help them, like let's give that back to those sort of groups that are helping people. Let's help people basically. And let's show that love and solidarity and mutual aid together, that we're all in this together and we can do things to help each other and help the broader community. Josh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'll just clarify that the RFC, that's the children of Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, who were put to death by the state during the McCarthy era in the 1950s. And yeah, I think it just kind of goes to show just the validity of people who need support being involved in the organizations that are giving support.
They help me. I want to help them. Let's keep this ball rolling, man.
Mm-hmm. That's why it's mutual aid, right?
Isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very definition, for sure.
I really love the Rosenberg Foundation.
So, Eric, had Rattling the Cages been available back in 2014 when you went to prison, do you think that lessons from the book would have changed your trajectory while imprisoned?
Yes. My God, what a good question.
Josh did it.
I came in blind. I came in really stupid. I didn't know not only what to expect, but what was expected of me. So there was things I wanted to do in prison, but like at the same time, I don't know, like, am I making things harder for myself? Am I being stupid? Am I making the movement look bad? All these things, like, I almost had like an insecurity or a doubt about like how to do my time. And what came out was like, I ended up being stupid early on. Like I caught multiple staff assaults early on because I thought I was fighting for the people. Like none of our elders in that book talk about my first year in, I smashed some cops for the movement. And they didn't do that because it was a no-win situation. It was stupid. But in my mind, I didn't know how else to resist. I didn't know how else to help people. When I started communicating with elders and like getting their books, getting books that came out where they had written things, like it started teaching me that like, I can treat this like the world. I can organize in here. I can resist on a smart level. And even though I failed a lot of times and I went back to just like, I'm going to fuck these dudes up. If I would have had these books going in, like for real, you read about how David Gilbert does his time. You read about how Lauren and Susan, Linda, like you read about people that are like, how can I help the people I'm inside with? How can we resist to help each other? It wasn't about how can I resist to hurt somebody. Like when you read about the people that did the HIV training, like they put themselves at risk, especially social risk, but they did it out of love to help the people they were with because they understood this is a struggle together. And if I had learned that, like I could have thought so much more clever. I could have been just more clever and not have to been through so much reckless resistance. I guess that'd be the word. Like resistance that doesn't have an end game, doesn't have a win. It's just like self-congratulatory, basically. Like you hurt me, so I'm going to hurt you. We don't move forward that way. Even though it feels good. It feels damn good. I can't stress enough how good it feels. I could write a whole book on how good it feels, but you don't get anywhere. Even I think Michael Kimball, like his whole thing was like, it feels good to resist, bro. It feels good. It's all I got. But you learn so much. So if I would have had that book, not only would I just loved and honored our elders more, which I always did to begin with, but like it would have already been there to start with, but I would have been smarter and I could have used my resources better. And I could have learned, like, how can I actually hurt the prison system while helping the people inside of it? Instead of just how can I hurt them while hurting myself? If that makes sense. Like you didn't give me a great packet, so I'm going to throw a cup of shit in your face. Mm-hmm. Like that's not clever. And I did that. That's stupid. Like, if you're going to oppress me, like you're going to eat shit. Mm-hmm. That's dumb.
Taking a situation where you are like systematically having power removed from you and then like reacting in the way that you see. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. That makes sense to me. Like
I saw this Asada quote where she was like, a revolutionary woman don't need no reactionary man. Mm-hmm. And so that just pops in my head sometimes. Like I'm being reactionary as shit. Like Asada wouldn't want to be my friend right now. But towards the end of my bid, like that changed and I was able to reflect. And a lot of that came from conversations with people like Josh or reading your transcripts with people. And like just learning more about what resistance looks like inside and how I can apply it to my own life. That's where the book is a tool, especially with the Cop City going on and the repression going on.
Yeah.
Bright star. A bright star shines through my window each night, bringing me comfort in my trial and plight. High in the sky, far away and free, shining so brightly, bringing comfort to me. My feeble existence is punishment for revolt. Beatings, endless confinement, hunger and cold. For refusing to play along with their propaganda and lies, to forsake my cause and be criminalized. I have fought for my country and her liberation, for the people to decide their own determination, to break the shackles that invaders have enforced and destroy the monster that kills without remorse. So on the blanket my struggle goes on. I never will yield, for my spirit is strong. For a cause I am proud to have played up my part, serving my land with body and heart. So come, bright star, tonight you must stay, but soon disappear when dawns a new day. For your people that slept are now awakened, to join in the fight to take back what was taken.
The Final Straw is a proud member of the Channel Zero network of Anarchist podcasts, and here's a jingle from another member of CZN.
We will never, ever surrender or compromise. We occupied government buildings, we blockaded highways, and we talked about not just marching, but direct action to shut this shit down.
Here we draw the line. Right here we say no more. No!
Yate, we invite you to join us for Indigenous Action, a podcast where we dig deep into critical issues impacting our communities in the occupied lands known as the so-called United States, or what many people recognize as Turtle Island.
This is an autonomous, anti-colonial broadcast with unapologetic and claws-out analysis towards total liberation.
So take your seat by this fire, and may the bridges we burn together light our way.
Fuel that fire so it's a blazing fire that they can never stop.
Find us at indigenousaction.org and with the Channel Zero Network.
It seems like some of the reflections from prisoners in that book or in other things that I've read or folks that I've talked to, like some of the strongest wisdom that people have gotten is from elders. And that's like a role that like elders in prison is to like say like, hey, like you're literally like banging your head against a wall that's not going to move.
Yep.
And when you come in, you can't be expected to know how things operate. And also people have been doing the thinking and the working and the collaborating on the inside to try to figure out, not that they have all the answers, but try to figure out like what actually moves things, what changes things, and where can we get from here if we collaborate together. And so like, that's one thing that definitely that I got a lot out of that book that I think is like super helpful.
Eric from 8 years ago would have wrote a book like this and would have been stabbed, hurt, fight. Eric today would write this book and say like, let's go into this with empathy. Let's go into this seeing like how we can work together. Let's go in this with love for each other, for what we're going through. And let's see how we can resist to actually make a difference. And that came from the elders. But also, like, I got to be honest with you, Bruce, like, not every political prisoner gives a shit about our elders. Like, let's be real. Like, not everyone is like dying to read a quote from Quasi. You know what I mean? Josh used to send me packets of Sundiata writings just so I could feel alive. So like, we as prisoners need that humility to understand that we don't have all the answers, but there's people that have been through what we've been through, and we can learn from them if we choose to. And those lessons, man, they're priceless.
And those, like, obviously those like bars and walls are real, and the wardens are real, and the guards and everything are real. But sometimes the delineation between like free world versus like inside world can obscure the fact that a lot of those lessons from that book are the sort of things that we need on the outside too. A lot of those like situations they have analogs to what we experience in our day to day, like when resisting or experiencing or witnessing series of systems of like of oppression. So I don't think it's go.
So like, this is one of the things I learned from the book the most that like really affected me is like, I felt really vulnerable in prison. Like there was times I wanted to cry. Like there was times like I was scared to death, dude. Like I'm not a big dude. I don't want to stab somebody. I don't want to die. And I watched these things happen, this brutality happen. I felt so afraid. And I didn't know who to talk to about that because like we're revolutionaries. We can't be vulnerable. We can't be sad. We can't want to just curl up and be like, God damn it, why is this fucking happening? We can't do that. That's what I thought. Because when you read, no disrespect to anyone, but when you read some of these older writings, that's what they are. They're like talking about how strong we are and how we resist and we can take on anything and don't let these bastards break you. But sometimes you do get broke. Like sometimes you're hurt, man. I can't talk to my wife on the phone for 5 years. You don't like, that hurts. And so one of the things the book really, really helped me with was seeing other people felt similar ways. Like knowing that other people, the people I looked up to, the people that in my mind were steel iron men, iron women, iron people, they were fragile too. Like they hurt. And it's okay to acknowledge that the prison system hurts us. Because if we don't, then like, if we don't acknowledge the hurt, then we're basically saying like prison's nothing. It's nothing. It doesn't do nothing. But if we're able to say like, this place hurts us. And there are times when it just feels like my soul is just getting ripped in pieces and I don't know what to do. And that was one of the things in the book that I was hoping to get. I wanted to know that other people cared and that other people actually felt. And so that was really rewarding for me. Like when I started reading the responses back, when Josh was able to share those with me, and when I finally got my copy, was to know that like, I'm not some soft ass dude. Like this is normal. Like we get hurt. Like not all of us can be Oso and just be a brick wall of badassery. Some of us have to be badass by like hurting and like knowing how to heal and get through it. And so I felt really that for me, that part alone in the book was priceless. Just knowing that it's okay to be human in prison. You don't have to be the revolutionary 24/7. Sometimes you can just be a sad dude who wants to run laps and read a book.
Well, I'll just add that one of the best parts for me so far is getting the responses from contributors and hearing what they think of the book. And And even what they've learned, these are people that have been involved in struggle for like 40, 50 years. So hearing that they've learned from this is really encouraging. And I look forward to hearing what other contributors think too.
These monsters of our movement, we're learning from each other, like getting to hear each other's words. And it's so empowering. I got empowered by reading about like those nuns and the priests, not the nuns, but like the Catholic folk.
Yeah.
Because
Elizabeth.
Their personalities were so vibrant in the book. Like, I didn't like the cursing. I didn't like all the poor language, because that's their reality. Like, that's something that like they felt. And even if it's like, so like, whatever, it was, or like hearing about Rebecca Rubin, her talking about like, she would not give up on these animals for nothing. She's like, this prison wall is not going to take away my personality. I love these goddamn animals.
Yeah.
And I love that. Like, it's not my experience, but hearing like just her personality in it, that's not like it's not a manufactured like ALF response. It's her being a human and saying like, this is what mattered to me. And I just thought it was so vulnerable and so sweet. Big up Rebecca.
Also, like the range of experiences too. Like I come back to not only like Ann Hansen's reflections from in there of just
oh my God,
like hearing about an assigned women's prison across the northern border from here, but James Kilgore's experience too of being an elder coming in already, and having like a decades long like experience sharpened with struggle and resistance and whatever. Like, yeah, it's sharp stuff. It's really good.
Did you ever read Anne's book where she talks about all of them smoking PCP in the prison?
Direct Action, or the other one after that?
I think it was Direct Action. It was so
terrible.
For real. That would be so terrifying to sit in prison smoking PCP, but this dude's in there just getting wetted up, just living life. It was sweet. Because once again, we picture how we're supposed to be, and then here's how your real life is. And Ann Hansen said, this is who I am. What do you want to do? It was awesome. I love her.
Well, is there anyone else that you wanted to say thank you to? Like, obviously, like you've mentioned your wife and your family. You've mentioned Josh a few times. Anyone else you want to give a shout out?
Well, so I always want to shout out Sandra, of course, Sandra Friedman. Sandy, she was Rattler's lawyer back then. She did my criminal case, her and the other legal team, but she came and visited me every week. When I was in USP Lee getting tortured, she came and visited me. When I'm in ADX, she's on that phone every goddamn week. So, just always love to Sandy. And of course, the bread and roses for the million things we talked about. Look, there's a big divide in the ABC world about who supports who and who supports when and all this stuff. But I can say like wholeheartedly, the more we invest, the more time we invest in helping people, the better our movement's going to be. The more we take people serious, the more we understand them, the more we get to know them. Like, we cannot fail if we're together. If we're unified, if we've got real solidarity, we can do this. Can I take a second to talk about supermaxes too, by the way?
Yeah, because like you and I were talking before the interview, and you were talking about wanting to do more work about making it more visible, the experiences of people that are in supermaxes or that are in like long-term isolation from other folks. So yeah, please, like, tell us about the experience and the work that you're hoping to do around that. So
it seems like in maybe the 80s, maybe late 70s, 80s, people got really invested in fighting against USP Marion. Marion took over from Alcatraz, and Marion was filled with political prisoners. Oscar was there, Leonard was there, Sundiata was there. One of my favorite people on earth, Bill Dunn, was there. All the Puerto Rican fighters were there. It was just packed with revolutionary people. And so because it had more of us in it, it had more eyes on it. And the more eyes that they had on it, the more they were able to ease up on the bullshit. The repression cannot survive when we're literally tangibly protesting against it. And people would do that. Shutting down Marion Control Unit was a big deal. But for whatever reason, ADX comes around and it just feels like people, I don't know, like stop caring. It seems like the liberal media will still pick up stories of the worst prison, the most dangerous, the most secure. But that talks about the prison. It doesn't talk about the people and what they're going through. And so when I got to ADX, I was having people writing me, asking if they could send me clothes, trying to send me food. I was like, I can't get mail without the FBI approving it. And you want to send me pants? God bless you. Thank you so much for caring. But there was just such a disconnect between what's happening and what people know. And that it alarmed me because I was meeting folks that have been there for 15, 20 years. A lot of them, not just a handful, a lot of them. And so if they've been going through this whole time, that means that people on the outside are either choosing not to listen, not finding what to listen, or there's not enough stuff to listen to. And that scares me because this prison is a monster. You have no power there. Like when I tell you 23 hours a day locked in a concrete box, I'm not joking. It is a concrete box You cannot hear the person next to you. You could literally go 20 years and not talk to another human because you have to go out of your way to go to rec. You have to go, when the cops bring you your food tray, there's 2 doors. They open the outside door, they stick the food tray on the inside bean slot and then walk out. There's no communication. And you don't want to communicate with these motherfuckers anyway. So I noticed just an extreme disconnect between what people know about ADX and how much they even care. As if supermaxes have been so normalized that we no longer need to worry about them. They're just inevitable. We have to deal with them. They'll phase themselves out. But like things are getting worse there. Things get worse there every year. The food is the worst I've ever had. The beds are the worst I've ever had. The cops, some of them are chill, but they have more power than any other cops. So they can beat the fuck out of you and you're not going to do nothing about it because you're handcuffed and they have batons. You only get to talk to unit staff and unit teams when they come around. Like you have no power. Everything is controlled by them. And it's not like that in other prisons. I'm telling you, in other prisons, you can get mail. You can go to the library. You can go to rec when you want. You can talk to staff when you need to talk to staff. You can fill out your own visiting. Like you can do things. I'm not saying other prisons are okay, but in ADX, you literally have no power, no control of anything. And when you can't control anything, that means they control everything. And that leads to abuses. And abuses happen every single day, every day. Like even when my wife finally got approved for visit, she'd come and visit me and the cop wouldn't have a chair in her area. Small things. That's a small thing, but it's a big thing because I'm in a concrete booth. I can't do anything about it. I can do nothing. When they come and take away all of our books because they just decide we don't get books anymore, we can't stop them. If they decide we're not going to rec, we're not going to rec. We can't stop them. You have 4 phone calls a month. Been there for 20 years. You have 4 phone calls a month. You don't get a 5th. No amount of bucking will get you that 5th call. You can't throw food. You can't attack staff. You're not getting that call. If the phone disconnects, you're dead. Like that's it. That's a phone call dead. 20 years. You're not touching your family. 20 years, 10 years, 5 years, 1 year. So I want to find a way where I can engage people in what these prisons are like. That these prisons are not a game. They're not inevitable. They're allowed to exist because we've allowed them to exist. They've gotten this bad because we've allowed them to get this bad. They shut down Thompson. They shut down Thompson in 2 years. Why? Because shit was so bad and people spoke up. A lot of people spoke up. Liberals spoke up. Our people spoke up. If we can get Thompson shut down in 2 years, if we can get the Lexington Control Unit shut down in 1 year, if we can get Marion shut down, can we not get ADX better? Can we not, I hate using this term, I hate punk ass term, can we not reform it? Can we not get these dudes a way out of there? Can we not make it to where everyone gets 4 hours out a day instead of 1 to start? Imagine being down 20 years and you get 1 hour out a day, man. Like I can start crying about it right now for real. Cause you meet these people. Jeff Ford is there. Jeff Ford did security for Martin Luther King. For real. In the 60s in Chicago. It's been ADX for 20 goddamn years. 1 hour out a day. Larry Hoover. No one cares about Larry Hoover. He's a gangster. He's a gang member. That dude's been in prison for 50 years. He's at ADX. He's 80. He can barely walk. They have him at ADX. For what? He gets 1 hour out of his cell a day. 1.5, whatever. 90 minutes. So these things mean something to me. When you meet an 80-year-old man who's been in a box for 20 goddamn years and he can't get out, you don't get out. You don't get to decide if you get out. That hurts me as a human. And I want other people to feel that hurt, that it doesn't matter that these aren't Bill Dunn and David Gilbert and Susan. It doesn't matter that they're not the best of us. They're humans that are being brutalized internally. They're not getting killed. They're not getting raped every day. They're getting raped and killed here in their hearts and their brains. Because when you live in a box for that long, I did it for 5 years. Your vision of the world, it does start becoming that box. Take away all the tough guy shit. Take away all the tough guy. Oh, it's nuts. I can do that standing on my head. Oh, they can't break me. They don't need to break you. They need to just chip away at you. And they will. And it does. It does 100%. There's a reason why I cry every day when someone's nice to me. I didn't used to do that. So that comes from extreme isolation. That comes from being vulnerable 24/7, having no control of your life. And I am just imploring people to please take supermaxes seriously. Don't treat ADX like it's filled with the villains that you hear about in the world so they don't deserve nothing. It's filled with pieces of shit. I'm not gonna lie about that. There's a lot of fucking dirtbags there. But no one if we allow that to happen to them, we're allowing it to happen to us. If we say it's okay for it to happen to these scumbags, then we're saying when we're considered the scumbags, it's okay to happen to us. And I can't tolerate that. I can't get in line with that. And I hope that other people will hear this and hit me up. Hit up my support team. Let me know that you care about supermaxes and you want to start talking about it. Because it only takes a couple discussions. We can get the ball rolling at least. That's all. Take it seriously, please.
I think there's an interesting trajectory too with like the supermaxes. Like the state keeps slightly modifying the ingredient list, but the recipe comes out the same, whether they call it like ADSEG or SHU or communication management unit or supermax or whatever. It's just a bunch of rebranding for the same dehumanizing pattern of circumstances that doesn't allow, as you said, like it disallows all these ways of interaction with the world, right? It breaks the person. But that's a fucked up spectrum, right? That's great.
Exactly.
You know, whatever. Like it's definitely like it could be a lot worse. Here's some examples of how it's worse. You're not getting put in like in some places I've talked to people where they're in a state system and they're old law prisoners from before like the changes in parole systems, and they have to deal with young prisoners who know that they have a set period of time for doing before they get out, but these people are still like reliant on the parole system. And so if they defend themselves in a fight, the younger person who came in with the 10-year sentence for the same crime that they got, that they're serving 25 so far for, can't defend themselves. But if they don't defend themselves, and they might still get a charge, or they might get stabbed or whatever, but the other person's going to get out after 10 years probably. The whole thing is such a magnificent like case of fuckery. The idea of like isolating out a certain part of the political body that is considered to be infectious. Like they put CMUs out there because they don't want political prisoners, they don't want jihadi prisoners, they don't want whatever else.
And it was real.
To like spread their ideology throughout the rest of society and create an ungovernable mass. Mm-hmm. Like they break us into little boxes. They like fortify the racial divides among prisoners so that we go into cliques or gangs or whatever. They allow certain groups to control parts of the drug trade or part of the other illicit trades. And like, I mean, that's
say that again.
Like
when McGowan was at the CMU, he was there with my friend Tarek, who just got out of ADX, jihadi dude. Some of the 1993 World Trade Center bombers were there. Some of the embassy bombers were there, but also so was the American jihadi. The American Taliban, what was his name? John Walker Lynn. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was there with him. And so like, it's just filled with like this interesting like cadre of people back then, to where like, even if you don't get along, you're all there for like, you all know why you're there, and you're all in prison for standing on your shit.
Yeah.
Whereas in a normal prison, you're there with, I don't want to diminish prisoners, but you're there with dirtbags. You're there with people that will stab you for 25 cents. You're there with people that will rob their grandma. It's real. I don't want them in prison, but there's pieces of shit in prison too. They still deserve to get out, but they're pieces of shit. And so instead of being with all those dudes, you're with like-minded people. And like, I got told by the jihadis that it started creating like this isn't that bad of an idea. Like it formulated almost like kind of how ISIS got started, like in an Iraqi prison. Like it started making them think like, we can organize here. Like we can do this. So like they took advantage of it to the point where like the bureau started like tried to kick them out to fill it with like rats and like sovereign citizen people. But like the jihadis like, no, we don't want to leave. Like we got a good thing going here.
It obviously like puts proof to the lie too that like the purpose of prison is rehabilitation.
No. If anyone still believes that, they're a child.
Yeah.
Like if anyone in the world ever hears that prison is about rehabilitating, you believe it. Like you'll believe anything. There's nothing you won't believe if you think this place that is built to tear you down and make you feel like the worst person on earth is there to fix you. I don't want to say I want to hit that person, but I want to talk to him. Josh, I feel like I've really bulldogged you on this.
No, absolutely. You keep talking. You're doing well. I haven't done time. All I've done is support you while you've done it. So it's your experiences to share.
Okay, fair enough. Burst, like, for real though, I also, how do I word this? Do I want to word this? There's fear about saying certain things because, like, I'm still being helped by people. And I don't want to hurt anyone in prison. But, like, I do also wish that we would give eyes to people that are in worse situations. I don't want to diminish someone. I started at a low. You know what I mean? I started at the softest prison on earth where Jared Fogle is. So, like, I understand. But I look at someone like Oso Blanco. He's been in nothing but the worst prisons. Like, worse as far as steel. He had to do the smooth. They just shut down Thompson. He did the smooth 3 times before it was being watched by the government. Before it had eyes on it. Imagine the horrors that someone like Oso Blanco has seen. It's hard for me to even put in words to where anything you say could be the last words you ever say. He's lived that life for, I think, 20 years. Josh, you can help me on that. So, like, I wish, like, I want people to support all prisoners, yada, yada, yada. That's where it's true. It's real. But there's people that have been in for a long time and they have had to do the hardest time you can imagine. Someone like JoJo in the state, someone like JoJo, that dude's in his 70s and he's still having to protect himself. He still lives in that environment. That's real. He might not ever get out. Oso, if Biden doesn't pardon him, when's Oso going to get out? So I do think that like when we talk about supporting our elders, we might not like them. We might not have fun writing them. Like, we might find that some part of their personality is this or that. What they're going through is so brutal that if we don't support them, to me, it almost feels like I'm condoning what's happening to them. I've given up on them. You don't need, there's nothing I can do. You've been in for 30 years. You know what you're doing, as if like the pain stops. I guarantee you Oso's hurting inside. I guarantee it. He's had to stab, like he's had to hurt people to survive. JoJo, shit. In the Pennsylvania state prison system, come on, man. It's just, even someone like Bill Dunn, he's been down 40 years. He's at a medium, but that medium sucks. Victorville sucks. That's where bro was at. What's his name? Conroy? Jake Conroy. Yeah. Yep. That medium fucking sucks. Bill's a 70 or 80-year-old man. So like when we think about support, I hope people think about the fact that yes, everyone has it bad. Yes, everyone is removed from their families. Yes, everyone has to deal with state repression, don't get to go home. But someone at that low or camp, they've never had to watch someone get murdered. They've never had to carry a knife up their ass out to wreck. They've never had to watch cops shoot somebody. There are different levels to prison, and I've been at all of them. So like I feel comfortable saying that I've been to a low, medium, high, and supermax. I've been all of them. So I can tell you like the support you need at a high is just different than the support you need at a low. It's different. And I think we need to treat people like when we're supporting people, support them at their level. Support them with what they actually need as opposed to what we feel might make us feel good. Oso might not want to hear about the fact that you took your dog on a walk. Like take the time to get to know someone like that and figure out how can I literally help you. I think Josh created a book with him. Another book. This dude won't stop making books or art projects.
It was greeting cards.
Greeting cards?
Yeah.
So Oso from the inside, in the midst of this, I can't describe to you how bad the USP system is in America. I literally can't. I can't put it into words. Oso's been there for almost my entire life, and he's still trying to help people. That's how he expresses his love of life, is by helping people. And someone like Josh or Burst or whoever can tangibly put him into the world. So I hope that people will support our Oso's an elder. All these people are elder. Bill Dunn's an elder. JoJo's an elder. Kojo at Coleman is an elder. Let's figure out like what they actually want. Like, let's take the time to get to know them and be like, what do you actually want or need? How can I literally help you? As opposed to, here's a picture of a tree. And maybe they want the picture of a tree, but maybe they're not Rebecca Rubin. Maybe they don't care about those birds. Maybe they care about something else.
I was going to say that like at least when we do our letter writing, if someone hasn't written to a prisoner, but their birthday's coming up, oftentimes we'll suggest, like, if you don't know what to talk about, like, just start a conversation. If you don't know how to start a conversation with a stranger, maybe don't go 0 to 60 because you don't know what this person wants to talk about, but just like give them some information to let them know you and kind of meet them at the human place and not like at the like political superhero place or whatever. I mean, is it annoying to get like a letter out of the blue from someone that's just like saw a baseball game?
Like, if we're being real here, I hate writing letters. I hate them. I've talked to Josh about this before. Now, because I always felt an obligation to respond. And so if I get 15 letters in a pack and every one of them is, hi, my name's so-and-so. I've never owned you before. Do you like bugs? Do you like turtles? I like this. It feels good, but now all of a sudden I feel like I have an obligation. Like now I have to spend $20 to write each of you back. And I'm not going to hear back from you. Because usually with letter writing nights, Burst, I don't know if this is your same experience. You can tell me. Oftentimes, I've never met a long-lasting friend that wrote me from a letter writing night. Not one. Some of them will write back 2 or 3 times. Jay, he wrote me from some letter writing nights. And like that built our relationship. So that was amazing. But usually those are people just with big hearts that care. And so like, that's sweet. But I'd end up sending back just like one letter to the entire group. Like, thank you. If you want to still be friends, please write me back on your own. And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But like, it's never bad to write a letter. It's never not appreciated. I guarantee that. What I meant was like, if we're trying to build relationships, we then have to get beyond that. Because like, we cannot become friends if the base of our relationship is that it's cold outside. So that's a good starting point. But if I write you back saying like, whatever, if I just write you back about my life, it has to start from something tangible and real for me. And when people did that, first time Josh wrote me, he was talking about political prisoners. And it was talking about the IRA. And he was talking about Daniel and certain days. It gave me something to talk about. But now we can connect on this level. So let me clarify, like, every time you've ever sent a letter to a prisoner, it's been appreciated. I guarantee you. I've never gotten a letter where I was like, fuck you. Who cares? Never happened. But I also know that I can tell by almost the first letter whether or not this person actually wants to write me. Does that make sense? Like, I can tell whether you're writing me or whether you're writing political prisoner Eric King. And there's a very big difference. And sometimes you have to work to get from one to the other. But if you're writing me as an object, I already know you're not going to write me back. I already know that we're not going to be talking for 5, 6, 7 years. And when the day I got out of prison, I was still writing people that had started writing me at CCA 9 years ago. Still, because they took the time to say, like, what are you about? Who are you? What are you passionate about? What do you care about? Or I saw this interesting story. What's your opinion? Do you want to write something? Do you want to make a zine? Do you want to do this? And so there's a big difference. So every letter is appreciated. Every letter feels good, especially when mail call comes around and you're the one that gets the stack. That ego is real. People, it's real, bro. But also sometimes if you want to do something, if you want to really connect with a human, like connect with them. Don't connect with them as this object of defiance and rebellion. Connect with them as a person. That all kind of went full circle, huh?
That makes sense. That's a good clarification. I'm glad. It's good to hear your perspectives on it.
Burst, when you sent me the zine packets to ADX, people love those. For real. Like you sent me, you never sent me mine, you jerk. But so people, I was next to like some dudes that have been in there for 15 years and they just love hearing like what they consider real news or real history. They hated censored history or bullshit history. So I would shoot them your packets.
That's awesome.
And they loved it. Like shit like that gave me an ability to connect with those people on a deeper level. And so other people, when writing prisoners, could print off things and send it to them and say, like, what do you feel about this?
Yeah.
Have you ever done something like this? Do you want to do something like this? Connect with them as a person and like really try to build that bond.
I know the Books to Prisoners project around here has done like a few reading groups where they'll go ahead and like reach out to the people on their mailing lists, say like, who wants to be a part of this? We'll send you a book, fundraise for the book, send it out to everyone, and then do an outside discussion group, have people write down the notes, solicit responses from people on the inside, put that into a zine, and then send that back to each of the people who participated. So it's a weird, like long dialectical, like back and forth. But at the end of it, you've got this conversation that maybe the bars and the comms wouldn't let you actually participate in.
Look, people in prison are willing to put in that long dialectical time. I don't know if you ever heard of a group called Free Minds out of DC. I recommend looking them up. They run a zine, but it's like a little magazine. And it's entirely by prisoners. And it is the best I've ever seen. Every dude in there from DC, there's a disproportionate amount of DC dudes in ADX. Every one of them had a subscription to Free Minds, and every one of them participated because they felt like they were being heard. Like they weren't censored. They weren't cut off. And it's very similar to what you just described with that, where it's like a magazine, but it's a magazine by like with our thoughts. Very similar to Fire Ant. Shout out to Fire Ant that tries to do that as well. People don't take advantage of Fire Ant like they should. Prisoners, like Rob and Naja, and everyone involved in Fire Ant, they do what you just described, but for anarchist prisoners. And I love it. I think Fire Ant it's just like what you described, that epitome of let's connect together. Let us connect together as people. I'm not going to censor you. I'm not going to be your parent. I just want to know what your thoughts are and what you feel about this or that or this or that, anything. So shout out to Fire Ant, Big Rob out of Maine.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Rob's
yeah.
awesome.
And
Rob's a great guy.
Absolutely. And the Bayview, I think, is another like example of a project.
I never got to hear about Bayview. Like they sent me one article once. I never got to experience. Is that a very similar project?
I mean, it's a longer standing. I think the project has probably got to be like 40 or 50 years old at this point. Its focus is being like the biggest national Black newspaper. And they feature articles and editorials by incarcerated activists all the time. It's super worth checking out. Yeah.
Hey, you should check it out, Eric. It's a good one.
So that would be the exact example of what I'm talking about then. Like, so connecting with people, man. If you're going to do a letter writing night, cool, but connect. Bayview connects.
Yeah.
Your letter writing group connects. You do a lot of that shit, Burst, for real. Like, I don't know everything you do, but I know you do your best to bring voices out.
Nobody knows what I do.
I call that inside out. Inside out support is the best. When someone on the outside and you work on a project together on the outside or inside, that is the best feeling on earth. That's what our book was. That's what his project with Oso is. That's what basically a lot of your radio show is. And that makes us feel so alive and like so bad. Like when Bill Dunn was putting out the marionette from Marion, like, and his supporters would like make copies and like send that shit out. He got to be free. Like that's a freedom. And it just takes effort. Like it just takes real world effort. because we can't do it. We can do some, but like we just need people that care enough to do it. And thankfully, I've been surrounded by those people. Not everyone is. So when all these people from Atlanta start coming in, and they will, I hope people don't just treat them as forest fighters or what. I hope they treat them as individual people. If there's 50 of them, 50 individual people who all cared, who all sacrificed their lives, who all put their futures on hold. Not one selective group of the Cop City protesters. No, they are people. They are individual people who care. And let's find a way to galvanize support and support every single one of them.
I guess maybe closing up the conversation now, and sort of going back to your connection.
Awesome. Sorry, go ahead. I apologize.
No, you're good. But like your connection with Josh and like those initial communications that got you all going were about, and the inspiration for the book in part was about like the prisoners in Ireland from the Republican movement, resisting colonization, resisting the RUC, resisting the British Army, all that crap, the loyalists.
Up the raw.
I think that one of the inspirations that I've taken out of that struggle is in my approach towards prisoner support is that prisons are there to break down the connection between our communities of people that are inside and the people that are on the outside. And this is not new info, right? But like, I wonder if you could, maybe the both of you could talk a little bit about the importance of prisoner support as it lies within the movements that we're involved in continuing that movement. Like that it's not just about the prisoners as prisoners, but it's about them as comrades and collaborators with us to change the world.
Josh, you want to start or you want me to rant for 30 goddamn minutes?
I'll just say that, not only does the Irish, the struggle for freedom there, but also in Palestine, they serve as shining examples of what we could have here in the U.S. and in North America if more people were involved, if more people were aware of political prisoners. And like you said, these are systems that are meant to destroy people and to basically commit legal genocide whenever possible, whether it's Black people in the U.S. or Palestinians in the Middle East or the Catholics and the Irish in Northern Ireland. But yeah, go ahead, Eric, please.
Well said. It really seems like in America, the government has done a really great job of making sure that the general public views prisoners as scumbags, as people not deserving love. We've had this beaten into us that if you're in prison, you're bad. And if you're out of prison, you're good. And if you don't want to go to prison, be good. And people have really internalized that. And so even other prisoners feel that way about themselves sometimes. Like, I deserve to be here. I'm trash. I did bad. What you see in places I've been to Ireland 8 times. And I've been really blessed to have been able to do that. But what you see in places like Ireland or like Palestine, like Bro mentioned, is that the public doesn't always view it that way. And they definitely don't view it that way when it comes to resistors. They do have a separate thing between social criminals and political prisoners, but they take their political prisoners goddamn serious. There's no oh, well, yes, you did this, but what you did was lame or stupid or wrong. They don't do that. When it comes down to we're being oppressed, we are going to resist this, and we are going to support these people who do that. And let's say let's take it back to the hunger strike. They weren't marching down the streets saying, they did though, for real, but it wasn't always just free the hunger strikers. It was save Bobby, save Kevin, save Brian. They were people. When we see the Irish struggle, they're respected as people. They were respected as fighters, and they are supported as much as they can. And that support is on the outside always. Not always, often. It's on the outside often. You see the rallies, you see marches, you see taggings, you see the banner drops, you see resistance, you see people shutting down the prison, you see people boycotting the industries that support the prison, which is something that in America we need. We will never break down the prison system in America without hitting the money. But the Irish were on that, and I imagine the Palestinians were too. But because they view resistance different, they view support for resistance different. We in America, I sometimes feel like the general public thinks we have it good. We're a free country. So if you're in prison, you weren't a freedom fighter. You were a bomber. You were a shooter, a robber. And that just diminishes the underlying reason and causes of why all this happens. It doesn't open for discussion. It doesn't teach anything. So I don't know how to change the American public's view of prisoners. Honestly, it seems like the January 6th people got more support than anyone. It seems like the public really turned on them because the politicians told them to. And I'm not expecting Cory Bush to come out and say free Kojo, but there is a complete discord between the people fighting, why they're fighting, and the general public. My mom does not know a single political prisoner. She knows me, but I think I don't know if we're doing enough to educate the public. I don't know if we're doing enough to rally support outside of our bubble. I feel as if sometimes we isolate ourselves. And I know for a fact the Irish do not do that. And we cannot make our message broader if we don't make our arms wider. If we don't welcome more people in, we cannot expect more support. And so it reminds me of that quote where when you have more people, you don't build a wall, you build a bigger table. Here soon we're going to have a lot of people in prison. If the Cop City shit goes poorly, if these other movements go poor, if the Palestinian protests go poorly, if fascists get into the White House and start making different laws, and so we have women, more trans people in prison, more activists in prison. And if we want to be ready for that, we have to have broader arms and a broader voice to reach out to people and say, this is what we're about. This is why we're about. We're human, rabble, all that shit to say, please come in here. Please see what we're doing and help us. Join us. And it almost sounds like evangelizing, but the Irish are able to do it. They are able to galvanize support because people understand why it's happening. And that's what we need to do. We need to let people know why this is happening. And if we don't, then it's just going to be us trying to pat ourselves on the back and trying to help each other. And we only have so many resources. There's only so many, as we said, there's only so many bursts and so many Joshes. We need 1,000 Joshes and 1,000 bursts. And they're out there somewhere if we're able to get to them. And I feel like that's important. And I feel like that's where the Irish have succeeded and the Palestinians have succeeded, is saying our struggle is your struggle. What I'm doing is because I am under the same circumstances that you are under. Help me. And they do. Pedantic? Annoying?
Josh?
Nope. Well said.
Josh, you flattered me. You're not being. This is what I just talked about. We need to be honest with prisoners.
No, I agree with you.
Go.
Did I ever show you guys my tattoo? Do you remember when that sniper was killing the cops in Dallas? Well, I remember it was July 7th, 2016. I got tattooed on my hand with a little heart. So stupid.
Wow. Nice. Do you remember that?
Sorry about that.
Can you also, well, never mind.
Can I what?
I've heard stories about your TED tattoo as well.
Oh, yeah. Do you want to see it, Bruce?
Okay.
It's on my thigh. Oh, well, if you've seen pictures, then fine.
No, I mean, if you're going to strip for me, then I'll.
So just so you know, I didn't get that tattoo of mass love and support for Ted. It's not like I think about Ted oh man, I hope Ted's in heaven doing great. It's because of what Ted represents to me is that even if someone is gross or even if someone is problematic, they don't deserve to have this suffering. That's the importance to me. Ted had a lot of gross theories, even though some of the stuff some of the stuff I do agree with. He wasn't wrong about technology, but even if I hate what Ted felt about people or society, he doesn't deserve to be in ADX for 20 years. He doesn't deserve to have the state destroy him. And that's what's important to me. So when I get this tattoo, it's to remember, one, action is important. Even if you have to do it yourself, put in the work. Ted did it all by himself from a goddamn cabin in Montana. So put in the work, but also don't abandon people because the state deserves to oppress them. Don't give the state a free pass to crush people. That's how I feel about the jihadis. That's how I feel about the scumbag gang leaders. These dudes might be pieces of shit, but that doesn't give the government free reign to just crush them. And that's what's important to me. It doesn't matter if we like each other. It matters if we hate them.
I mean, like you said, if they have the ability to do that to them, they're going to do it to us.
We're the next step. People need to understand that.
Yeah.
A small time, I threw a goddamn bottle at a wall in Kansas City, Burst. Didn't even burn the goddamn building down. And I just got out of ADX. Imagine what can happen to these Cop City people if we're not on our toes. Imagine what can happen to someone if we take our eyes off of them and give the state free reign. They will crush us. Literally.
It's been a pleasure talking to both of you. Any final where can people still find your writing on your support blog and your social media and stuff like that? And do you want to name those?
I'm not on social media myself, but I've been really enjoying posting little video clips and little pictures, and that's on supportericking.org. But also Support Eric King, I guess, is just the Instagram and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, more eyes the better. If you think I'm being annoying, tell me. If you think my shirts suck, let me know. This is how I grow. People really called me out for wearing a Kansas City Chiefs hat. So I don't have it on today. This is how we grow. But also, please support people fighting for trans people. Please support people fighting for Palestinian people. Please support people fighting for prisoners. Support Bread and Roses. Support the Rosenberg Fund. Support your local ABC. Do your goddamn running down the walls and raise money, because the war chest is not a game. That war chest helps people. That is inside-outside activism. And please buy Rattling the Cages. I want to make this sequel, and we need to make sure we have good sales. We need to push. If you're with Northwestern University Publishing, let me know. Call me. Josh, go ahead.
No, I'll add to buy a 2024 Certain Days calendar, which features an article about the book. And also just the fact that the book is a fundraiser. Half the proceeds go to the ABC War Chest, which provides monthly stipends to people in prison. And the other half goes to Eric. And I'm sure he will do amazing things with it.
Yeah, I'm not just keeping the funds. Like, it's going to like put back in the community. It's not like for me just to like buy a new shirt. The shirt's 20 years old.
I saw the video of you driving down the road with the Benz. So that wasn't your Benz from like benefit money from the Rattling the Cages?
That was siphoned off pre-release money.
Okay.
I manipulated and guilted people.
All that big AK press money. Yeah.
Thank you so much, bro.
Of course. It was good getting to actually meet you.
Yeah, for real. You look great. Very nice.
You too. I like the tats.
Do you see these braids I started doing?
Yeah, they're good.
That's funny, right?
It's good.
They're funny.
Up like a bird on high o'er the city, 3 men are missing, I heard a warder cry. Sure it must have been a bird that flew into the prison, or one of these new ministers said the warder from Mountjoy. Early one evening as the branchmen they were sleeping, a little helicopter flew in from the sky, down into the yard where some prisoners were walking. Get ready for inspection, said the warder in the joy. Down in the yard through the pushing and the shoving, 3 of the prisoners they climbed upon the bird, and up and away they went into the grey skies. I think someone escaped, said the warder in the joy. And it's up like a bird and high o'er the city, 3 men are missing, I heard the warder cry. Sure it must have been a bird that flew into the prison, or one of these new ministers, said the warder in the joy. Over in the Doyle they were drinking gin and brandy, the minister for justice was soaking up the sun. Then came this little message that some prisoners were escaping. I think it's 3 of the provost, said the warder in the joy. Search every hole, search every nook and cranny, let no man rest until these men are found, for this cannot happen to a law and order government. I think you'll never find them, said the warder in Mountjoy. And it's up and away and high o'er the city, 3 men are missing, I heard the warder cry. Sure it must have been a bird that flew into the prison, or one of these new ministers, said the warder from Mountjoy. And it's up like a bird and high o'er the city, 3 men are missing, I heard the warder cry. Sure it must have been a bird that flew into the prison, or one of these new ministers, said the warder from Mountjoy. And it's up like a bird and high o'er the city, 3 men are missing, I heard the warder cry. Sure it must have been a bird.
If you're listening to this podcast version and you want a little more content, we've got some great things coming up, including hopefully a conversation with Kazi Torre of the National Jericho movement about prisoner support, aging prisoners, and supporting post-release for our elders in the movement, as well as a conversation with Joey Ayoub around the U.S. and European roles in the murder and genocide against Palestinian people in the occupied territories, as well as the way that those things are talked about. Finally, you can get a little more content, get an early sneak peek of interview with our own Sean Swain about the 10 years that he's been producing a segment for the show. We've released it early for Patreon supporters. It's an hour and a half of me and Sean and I bantering a bit, and Sean giving recounts of some of his history and some of his experiences working with the show, and also just of the last 10 years of struggle. And you can find that at patreon.com/TFSR. Early audios are sometimes available to folks who subscribe for $3 or more a month. We have other levels of support that are there, including for $5 plus a month, you can get stickers sometimes sent, as well as an initial packet with a zine and some stickers. And for $10 a month of support via the Patreon, you can get a monthly zine in your inbox, plus the other gifts mentioned, the pre-release audios and stickers. So it's worth checking out. If you have a couple extra bucks, even just supporting for a little bit, get access to a little bit more from us and our thanks. And that's what helps to pay for the transcripts that Eric talks about receiving, like not only the postage costs of that, but also the transcribing of those materials of these interviews. We mail like 4 or 5 to prisoners every month when we send out our general zine packets, but those zines are available for easy sharing with folks across the board just at our website at tfsr.wtf/zines. So feel free to check that out, and thanks to those of you that support us or spread these words around. And now some words from anarchist prisoner Sean Swain.
Tomorrow marks the occasion of the 30th anniversary of 2 major events, one catastrophic and one inspiring. On January 1st of 1994, NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, came into effect. NAFTA allowed corporations to accelerate what's been called the race to the bottom, transplanting their operations where they find the cheapest labor and the most relaxed environmental standards, gobbling up greater and greater amounts of profit. NAFTA is the catastrophic event with the 30-year anniversary tomorrow. A catastrophic event still reshaping our world into the dystopia that it's becoming. But as I mentioned, there was also an inspiring event that marks its 30-year anniversary tomorrow. Because on the same day that NAFTA declared total war on our world, guerrillas clad in ski masks and carrying rifles emerged from the morning fog of the La Condon jungle in southern Mexico, descending from the mountains to lay siege to 12 municipalities. In each of those towns, the corrupt government leaders had bowed to the wealthy caciques, the wealthy landowners, and had pushed the poor off their land, allowing the wealthy to consolidate more land and the wealth it produced. So those guerrillas swept into those municipalities, rounded up the mayors, put them on trial, and shot them. They then held a press conference to announce to the world that the Zapatista National Liberation Army existed. In answers to questions from reporters, they revealed that they were not fighting for land or even for their lives. They recognized that from the moment they confronted the powerful Mexican state, they were, in their own words, already dead. Insurgente Marcos, the spokesperson for the EZLN, declared that they were only fighting against a proposition, the proposition that they never existed. In other words, the Mexican government would eliminate them, but it would know they were there. This moment, the emergence of the EZLN, had not happened in a vacuum. It was a moment that had been building over decades as the wealthy and powerful displaced and dispossessed the poor Indios in the southern region of Mexico, as the American companies financed maquiladoras, factories along the northern border that pulled desperate people to desperate conditions and pay. In the midst of all this, revolutionary Marxists from Mexico City, some of them university professors, trekked to the La Condon jungle, bringing with them their theories of revolution that would be the salvation of the Indios, the dispossessed, the indigenous people. But it didn't work out as planned. The Marxist theories fell on deaf ears. The people didn't need saviors with university degrees in socialist theories. They needed food. They needed their land. They needed their world restored to them. And so these Marxist revolutionaries from the university did something that Marxist revolutionaries have never done. They listened. They learned from the Indios. They came to value the indigenous wisdom, the way of life, the perspectives. They became forever embedded in those people, bound to them, bound to their experience of the world, fully understanding what they would be fighting for. So when the Zapatistas descended from the mountains on January 1st, 1994, they were not fighting for Marxist theories. They were fighting to establish their own liberated space, a world where many worlds were possible, where everyone was valued and afforded dignity, a world where their indigenous traditions could not only carry on, but could be vindicated. In the midst of Mexico, in the shadow of the United States and its empire, the Zapatista Autonomous Zone has survived for 30 years. In that time, it has hosted international encounters, pulling in the intelligentsia and social influencers from all over the world to imagine possibilities, to inspire radical change everywhere. The Zapatistas have become, as they once announced, the dignity of rebellion. So that's the good news. 30 years after they emerged, the EZLN is still there. The bad news is, 30 years after they presented the blueprint for confronting power and struggling for liberation, there have not been ski mask-clad guerrillas with rifles emerging in the industrial Western world, in London or Berlin, in New York or Cleveland or Los Angeles. 30 years have passed, and the global disorder can still focus singularly on the EZLN, contain it, neutralize it. It is still a one-front war for the capitalists and the nation-states who serve them. Everywhere, we see industrialized Western, mostly white people cheering on the Zapatistas, perhaps even expressing solidarity, whatever that means. But we see no one emulating them. We see no one actually joining them on the world stage, opening new fronts, building momentum, adopting the winning strategy of the Zapatistas, and innovating to create new applications. Our solidarity, whatever that means, only goes so far. We sit in our first world comforts surrounded by millions of guns that are routinely used to shoot all the wrong people, and we show support for the Zapatistas with our posts on Instagram and TikTok. While the Zapatistas seek to create a world where many worlds are possible, our deaf culture continues to grind along, creating a world where no worlds are possible. What the Zapatistas did, we can do. What the Zapatistas did, we must do. Ya basta. Mejor morir en pie que vivir en rodillas. This is Anarchist prisoner Sean Swain from the Super Duper Uber Mega Ultra Hyper Turbo Multi Maxi Max in Youngstown, Ohio. If you have access to a ski mask and a rifle, you just might be the resistance.
You can still write Sean at his new old new again address at Sean Swain number A243205 OSP Youngstown 878 Coitesville Hubbard Road, Youngstown, Ohio 44505. You can find his past writings, updates on his case, hear his past audio, find out how to get his books, plus ways to contribute to his legal defense fund at SeanSwain.org. This is The Final Straw Radio. This show will later be archived at thefinalstrawradio.noblogs.org, and you can email us with questions and suggestions at thefinalstrawradio@riseup.net or thefinalstrawradio@protonmail.com. If you'd like to use any episode for your project or radio show, feel free to do so. Just send us an email to let us know. If you care to, you can send us letters at TFSR, P.O. Box 6004, Asheville, North Carolina, 28816. This show is brought to you by Firestorm Books. Located at 1022 Haywood Road in West Asheville, Firestorm Books is a worker-owned cooperative in Asheville specializing in offbeat, underground, and independent literature. You can find a catalog of Firestorm's books and zines, plus a full calendar of events at their website, firestorm.coop.